Well, today we had another good day in the shop. Very, very productive. We were hoping we'd get some painting done today, but the rain that was drizzling in the morning turned into real rain, which turned into fog in the afternoon, more rain, drizzling. Just was a mess all day. So rather than try to fight the weather gods, I thought I'd get this. This is the panel that already has clear on it. It needs one more coat of clear. I got to sand it out with 1000 grit detail. It shared some good information. Went through, showed how to touch it up, and showed how to deal with the decals, which these decals are a lot thicker than the ones that are on the water slide decals that we use on our projects. But in the end, and it's always the important thing, in the end, after the touch-up, we are absolutely ready for the next day that it's going to be appropriate to paint clear. And according to the weatherman, that's not coming for a couple of days, so we'll have to see. Now this morning I wake up, and it's like it always is this time of year. Unpredictable weather. It's drizzling and drooling out there now. Not sure I'm going to be able to get any paint done. But Karen had a wonderful idea. She said, we got errands to do this morning. Let's take care of all the errands. And this is why I love Karen. And we'll do our grocery shopping too, because what they're doing, they're predicting the rain will stop by 1 o'clock. Maybe able to paint this afternoon. Well, that looks like the plan of action. We got the black wheel ready for the black. And boy, would it be nice to get that black painted today, if nothing else. And that's why it's always better for me to have multiple projects that don't depend on the weather. I could work downstairs, I could work outside. God forbid it ever warms up here. It is supposed to get warmer later in the week. I'll believe it when I see it. And summer, at least by the calendar, is coming. I don't know by the weatherman if it's coming. But sooner or later we're going to be able to get that evil twin deck, get those wheels on. And boy, oh boy, you know, I wonder if I even had a body shop, if I had the friend that had a heated, air-conditioned body shop, if I'd enjoy it a lot more. I don't know, but if you have a heated, air-conditioned body shop, give me a call. Maybe we could make a deal. And being honest, I've always worked under battle conditions here, like we're in Afghanistan or something. And maybe that's part of the challenge of it, that you do it on it like a tough guy. If only I was tough, though, that would have helped a whole lot. And as I say all the time, it's not the battle conditions. It's when you're all done and the spring weather comes, do you have a restored bike ready to ride? Well, we did last year. And this year I am looking forward to riding that MT-09. I'm looking forward to riding the wheels off it. Putting a lot of miles, a lot of tires, and a lot of oil changes on it. And of course, once we have this evil twinned out, we'll be riding the wheels off this too. We'll have a brand new set of tires and whatever else we're going to do to it. And this bike is always great on a long ride. Well, and it's supposed to be drizzling all day. That's what they say. I don't know whether to believe them or not. But it's melting a lot of the snow, and I guess I should cut my losses here. And it's the first time I can see the whole healthcare worker sign. Well, come on, look at that cloud though. The clouds aren't telling me this is going to get sunny, but I can't be any worse than a weatherman. Well, we can just hope for the best today. But then every day is unpredictable here. Okay, once again in the shop. Ooh, boy, would I like to get some clear on that today, but I got a feeling that's not going to happen. I just think that's not going to happen at all. I'm going to want to get my hopes up. So what I want to do here, and I'm going to hopefully, maybe even if the weather gets a little better, I can get the black on here. Well, but again, I don't want to get to the point on this where I'm rushing things. So I think Karen is right. We'll do all our errands in the morning and hope it clears up. And the ultimate goal would be at some point in the next couple days is to get a coat of clear on this so we can start burying those decals before we do a final sanding. This one is ready for a final sanding and a final coat of clear. But again, I wouldn't risk any of that. To risk that on a day that it could just get one drop of rain in it, it would ruin my whole day. And I really don't want to do those compromises. So I guess it's shopping time. And it's always good when you're in doubt, don't rush it. That's a good general rule. Somehow it doesn't have the look of this is going to be a day that warms up and the sun comes out. I'm not sure. But it'll be good to get all this done. Well, we have other things to do. Look at it, it's all still a mess. Last errand of the day, ShopRite, my favorite. And then we could finally go home and work on motorcycles. It's still raining pretty bad though. What a mess. Not a good day. I love the senior citizen shopping hour. Oh, I'll never go hungry again. That's such a good feeling, have inventory. Now, even after we're home, it's still drizzling just a little bit and it does not look promising. So I'm going to dedicate the day to sanding out one of Joe's fairing sides, get that ready. So some decisions are really easier than others. If it's going to rain all day, we have one choice. And again, we can't do much painting, but we can get this part, the one part that already has clear over the decals, and it actually has clear over the part. I can get the final sanding. So now what that is going to do for me, I'll have that part ready for a coat of clear and this part ready for the black at the same time. So that should be one day of painting, and I just have to move things around here and get out the sandpaper. Now the first thing is to try to get this part up off the table in such a way that it'll be easy to work on. Oh, that looks pretty good. And this one can go up in the front. Once this is nice and solid, we'll be ready to work. Part of the errands today was to get here we go, a whole new sleeve of 1000 grit paper. I was running out, and I know I'm going to be using a lot in the future. This is Mirka. Now, I wanted to mention something, that when you buy sandpaper, if you go down, this is 1000 grit. If you buy one sheet of sandpaper, and I buy this is about a third the price when you can justify buying a sleeve. The sleeves are usually about a third the price as to buying one sheet at a time. At least it is at Gavin's. And just to mention something I found to be true, Mirka is a major brand. 3M is a major brand, some of the other major brands, but there are things that I've bought thinking I could beat the system on this, bought some cheap, and they don't even put the name of who made it on the back of the sandpaper. They just put the number, and that stuff used to wear out so quick it wasn't even worth having. It's always good to have a big brand name, no matter what it is, in Mirka, in DASA, any of the big brands, especially if you buy it off the internet. This is a small body shop tip that if you cut a piece of sandpaper exactly in half, and you're going to use a soft block, again, you can buy a soft block for about $5. It has room for your fingers. It makes it comfortable when you have to do a lot of sanding now. And the parts like this, give me a lot of sanding. So what this does, and it allows you to do this, is to put, I want to show this trick, and you're sanding, and you're wearing that edge out. You're only wearing an edge out. Move it. Now you're wearing a new different spot out. Move it and wear it. Then turn it around. So you get, actually I would say you get a minimum of 6, and maybe if you're careful like I am, not to waste things. Well, here's the whole deal in a nutshell. That it allows you to use the whole piece of sandpaper, not just the little edge. And these soft rubber blocks, I want to use this number one for all the flat spots. I'd pick out all the flat spots. This will take the dust that's in the paint and make the next coat of clear stick perfectly. This is exactly what a real, if you were painting a super high-end car, you would want to do this right before the last coats of clear. Now this is why I like to have the part up off the table and have a clean towel on the bottom of the table. This makes it just as easy as pie. But a job that it really is not, believe me, this is not the most fun you can have in motorcycling. But I want to get the whole part scuffed. Once I do all the flat spots with the block, then I'll have to detail it by hand, have to get in all the corners, the edges, everything. But what this is going to do, this is going to make that last coat of clear, or if we think we need it, 2 coats of clear, and I'll know that once I sand over the decals. What it's going to do is make that just lay down beautifully. And it's going to make it, if you don't do this, if you just paint over a part that's not sanded, yeah, this is the correct way to do it. this is the way I've been able to make show quality bikes that basically the record is that I've never lost a show, but I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. Maybe I should brag more. Maybe there's people out there that don't know how humble I am. Anyway, want to show a little spot in real time, and then we're just going to go to town here because it is not going to stop raining today, and I would love to have this part prepped and ready to go. So let me just, as I always do the real-time thing here. I'm going to not shut the camera off. We're not going to pretend we're selling bagels here or something. Hold on one second. This is what I'm trying to achieve. It's etched with 1000 grit. I don't want, you see, if you look real close, you can see there's little sanding spots and grit. And of course, these decals, the factory decals, I want to bury them in clear as much as possible. So this is going to be a full work session to do this, but this is exactly, if you want show quality and not, well, that's pretty nice, but when you want that extra, and you want to win the show too, this is the step you really have to be patient on. Super, super patient. Now in super fast forward, it's hard to imagine how long it takes to do these jobs. But I just wanted to get the idea, try to share the idea that this is a lot of work. This is not easy. And I try to segment it out, one little spot, I'll do another spot up here, another spot, maybe do this spot, each individual spot. But get one spot done, and when you're totally done, wipe it down. If you have any little moon craters or anything in there you want to address, right now is the time to address them. Now, even though we put a lot of this in fast forward, you just can imagine it's just a lot of work. It just takes time, and you've got to just have coffee breaks, and I have never found a substitute. Quality work takes time. And what you find right away with any job like this, it just there's always some little way you can make it go better. In my case, the biggest one is just have some extra coffee, get all liquored up, and not sure that's the right word, but anyway. And who knows, you know, that may help. But there's still just no better way I know than just to break it into parts. And I've been breaking this into one part at a time. And it's just a labor of love. And you think this is a lot of work, and you really start, at some point in time, your arms get tired or whatever. But then in the end, when it's done, and you look at the fruit of your labor, holy mackerel. There's no way to describe that feeling to somebody that's never experienced it. Now, another thing that's super important is there's a valley here. Anywhere there's a valley, you want to get that sandpaper down in the valley, because that's where that paint really does need to stick. And in all these scoops, we're going to have to do those scoops by hand. Just, there might be a better word, labor of love is a good one, though. Think of it this way. All this sanding is like a treadmill for your arms. I always think, you know, you do this kind of work, if you do this kind of work 2-3 hours a day, you don't have to go to the gym. Not that much. You know, just do this and you'll be as healthy as I am. Just imagine. Imagine the joy and thrill of that. Yeah, it goes without saying, it's pretty rewarding to see how much of this, once we get this done, and again, I'm doing it in pieces. Now, I've realized something about the decals that I was not aware of before. These are really thick decals. These are really thick. Unbelievable. So I don't know how much clear, see, there's a limit to how much clear. You can't put 1/8 of an inch of clear over it, but I'm going to have to, when I do the final hand sanding, get in between all these little nooks and crannies. If I were to just take the sanding block and keep grinding, I'm going to go through and cut a decal edge, and I don't want to do that. Believe me, I don't want to do that. I want that to be as good as possible, but it may be that because of the thickness of the decal, and I do remember at Motorcycle Mall one time looking at some of the high-end bikes and just rubbing my hand over them, and almost all of them you can feel the decal. My bike, you cannot feel the decal, but there's a difference. Mine are water slide decals. These are well, what Joe has, they're thick. So, and boy, I don't want to compromise that, that's for sure. So that's one of the things I'm learning as this job is going along, and well, we still have a lot to do. And I was expecting Luciano to come running over here with a pizza pie and do it for me. Well, I waited patiently for Luciano or one of my other dear friends to show up to do all this work while my arm was getting tired. And you know what? Nobody showed up. Nobody's shown up in 75 years, so maybe I should just cut my losses here. Anyway, it's moving along. Now it's time to start the hand sanding part because you really can't get a block in here. And so I fold the sandpaper back to the big jobs that are relatively flat. It gives you a good traction on the sandpaper and just makes it a little bit easier on your arms, even though, you know, when you do this kind of work and you want to have that be at the local peanut bar and do one of these arm things, always use your sanding hand. Especially if you're going against a woman, an old woman. Oh yeah. Oh, this is just, when I get to this point, I'm about 2/3 done here, and I start to look at it, and then when I'm done, the last thing is to sit and pick away at it and get rid of any little spots that are going to be a problem in the final clear, because when this final clear is on here, I want it to lay down just perfectly. Now, whenever I'm sanding by the edges, I have to be real careful I don't go through. But let's pretend I do go through anywhere, in fact. I still have the matching paint in the gun, and I would cover the decals up with tin foil, and if I do have a spot I went through, so far so good, but a job like this, very, very easy to go through. There's a lot of corners and angles and edges and whatever. So I am really, really being careful, but even as careful as you can be, there's still that possibility you're going to have a problem. So, but we'll do the best we can. And in the end, the best we can usually is pretty good. And one of the parts that really takes a lot of extra time is getting inside all these little scoop areas. And anything that's a valley, anything where it's a low valley, this area right here is where paint would tend to be a problem. So we don't want, obviously we don't want anything like that. I want it to be as good as I can make it. And the whole objective is to make it better than the factory made it. So if we get both of those, if we can check both of those boxes at the end of the job, good for us. Now all the scoops, whatever inside radiuses there are here, this all has to be done by hand. There's no beating the system here, that's for sure. Now I've saved the last thing for detailing out the decals as best I can. The idea would be to get rid of as many of the high spots as I can, although there aren't really many of them up there, and to try to get in between the letters just a little bit better than, well, we're always looking for a little bit of an edge or something better. And that should be, this was labor intensive, baby. Now I remember when Joe brought the first piece over, and I was wondering, wow, that's going to be a lot of work. And then he brought the second piece, and I said, wow, that's going to be a lot of work. Now, you may think, well, yeah, it is a lot of work, but look at what we have in return. There's no way that I know of, and I don't think Joe knows, how or where you could replace these parts with something better than what we're going to wind up with. And we're obviously going to wind up with this, at least if the weather cooperated, about a week. If the weather doesn't cooperate, it could go on until forever. But I'm trying to get this scuffed. But here, because the decals are so thick, I don't want to take any chance I go through, and especially on the gold edging. So I'm going to be real conservative here when I do this, and even when I do any sanding on the decals on the other part. The other part I don't have any clear at all on the decals, so it just takes a long time. And you know this, I'm not unaware of the fact this is a lost art. Not a lot of young people are filling the ranks and want to learn how to do this, and I understand why, because they want to have an app on a phone where you push the app and the decals appear, but sometimes the apps don't really work as well as sandpaper. So sometimes, you know, I always use the example of when your toilet doesn't flush. There's no app to fix that. You got to call a plumber. So you got to call a guy like me that's used to having his hands dirty and get it done. Okay, so we're going to dry this part off and then start looking for little spots we can pick away at and try to get it ready, because the weather's gone for the day and I'm gone for the day. By this time I'm ready for the whatever, the 14th cup of coffee today. Now, as I'm doing the final wipe down, I realized there are more than one little baby touch-up spots on the bottom of the fairing where all this bodywork was. That's not going to be an issue at all. There's a spot up here I have to address, and now I just have to start getting fussy and fussier, because anything I try to bury now, I don't want it to come back to bite me. I'm so close to the finish line here. I don't want to trip and fall, whatever. This is, all the patience has really started to pay off. Now, once you dry a part off, of course, now I can see there's a spot, and there's two spots I made right there. I could do these by hand because they're just almost innocuous, but it's still worth anything I see now. I can still address it, and the part will be even better. So this is ready for a touch-up. I'm going to just run I'm doing right in the shop. It's just a small spot. Just spritz that one time until I get a touch-up on that. That's the worst spot of all. Everything else, now you might remember, this whole thing is body work. There's body work up at the top. There's body work everywhere. So I try to just look at how lucky I am that it came out the way it did. And this spot up here was busted here. This edge was all crushed in. So we are ready for that final coat of clear. This was amazing, amazing big job. And that's all it's involved in touching up that spot we went through. So as I end the video, it was really a long day. This really took a lot of time. But what we have now, we have two things ready for a day that we'll be able to paint. We have the wheel ready, we have this ready, and the other part I can't really do much till I get a painting day. So pretty much we're stalled, but we're never really stalled. I'll go find something to polish. So anyway, this was a big job. I hope you picked up some information you can use, some tips, whatever. I want to thank the healthcare workers. Yes, I will dig that sign out and make sure it's all nice and straight when the rest of that snow melts. In the meantime, thank you for keeping my family safe. I'm a couple of weeks away from getting my vaccination, and Karen's, we go on the same day. And hopefully that'll be better. Hopefully we're coming up on that this is all going to be behind us, I hope. And hopefully we're going to see this bike in one piece, and Joe will be out there riding the wheels off it or whatever, and just put it in his garage and wax it every day. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for watching. Now, today was a really long day in the shop. Very unexpected. I was expecting to get a wheel painted. Instead, I wound up sanding all day. But at least I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger anyway. Well, who knows if I do. Maybe my feet look like his feet. Anyway, I wanted to review this project. These are the pictures that I've taken all during the project. Some of them anyway. I really have a lot more, but just to hit the highlights. All of the things over the past few, I guess 2 months, maybe, we have really put an incredible amount of time and energy into these projects. And I know Joe has put a lot of his hard-earned money into these projects too, including the cost of the decals coming from Australia. But I've tried to team up with them to do something really special, to take these parts that basically were in really rough shape. And you don't really see it on the video, how many patches and how many scratches and how many things I took care of in the course of doing this job. And I think when the whole job is done and it's back on the bike, and well, maybe we'll even go for a little ride with Joe, get some footage of him doing wheelies up and down Main Street or something. This body work at the bottom of the bike was a major thing. Touching up the paint was a major, major thing. And I do have, I showed the way I've done it in the past with the step method. And the next time we have to do it, I'm going to use a method that John Pothier shared with me. Thank you, John. But we did get the color match perfect. And the biggest thing, we got color right. We got to thank color right for getting the color absolutely perfect. Now, I don't, and in my experience, color right has been the only source when you really want to have the paint absolutely match, especially reds and yellows. Wow. I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten paint, paid for it, and put the bike out in the sun, and it has not been a good match. But anyway, that's all beside the point now. We're coming up on the end of this project. We're coming up on the end, and this is something I always, what I call, would put the switch plates in. When I did construction work for many years, there was that day the paint was dry and the rugs were in, and the last thing, you went over and put the switch plates in, and yay, boy, have that extra cup of coffee. I drank a lot of coffee in the course of getting the job to this point, and I will not compromise. I will be waiting for an absolutely perfect day to shoot the clear. Because if that final clear doesn't come out the way I'm going to be happy with it, and I really want it to be absolutely spectacular. When you see this, I just want it to be the crown jewel of Joe's bike and of his small bike collection too. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, before I end the video, I want to share a couple of, these are little paint touch-up things that can happen to you and how to get around them. These are little tips. This is a part we were working on. You can see the paint all alligator skinned up, and you can see it just looks like an alligator skin. Well, that's a common thing when you're using older paint, newer paint, paint you don't know who put on before you. God knows what else. And we were doing a job, I don't remember exactly who this job was for even, but we were painting this up and we had a compatibility issue. That was the problem. And the compatibility issue was, it's usually related to the paint thinner. If you have high penetrating thinner and you have a paint that's not happy with that, this is what happens. I call it alligator skinning, but that's not really the word. And what happens is it'll happen all over, and then it'll happen on some spots, not on others. It's a lot more prone to happen on plastic parts. I don't know why. Here you can see what the little problems are. But there's only one real solution. You got to sand through it and get it flat. And this is the tip that's worth its weight in gold that a lot of people don't know. You've got to get the part sanded flat. You can't just paint over the wrinkles and the alligator edges. You got to sand away. Once you get the part flat, now I've sanded it here over and over and over, and you can see it's exposed up some of the paint underneath that's not compatible. And no matter how many times you paint this, it's going to be a mess. But there's this thing that I found that's a decent solution. Use primer sealer. Not primer, primer sealer. Especially on plastic parts. If you're painting old DUCATI mirrors, old parts, primer sealer. What the sealer does, it seals away the thinner from the new paint, especially if you by mistake or on purpose are using high penetrating or slow drying thinner. Not all thinner is the same. So these are just pictures that I took out to show what this alligator skinning was like. It took me years to figure out how to cure some of these problems that I was having, especially with older plastic parts. Honda 750 side covers almost always melt. Old DUCATI mirrors, not the new ones, the old ones, always have a problem. But the primer sealer, not primer, primer sealer, Duplicolor is my favorite, but Rust-Oleum will work too. Whenever you have a compatibility issue, you got to sand it enough. In this case, I think I used 600. Get it scuffed up and get enough 1 or 2 coats of primer sealer on before you do any body work or any really repainting or anything. And this is really a tip worth its weight in gold, is that primer sealer. It basically solves one of the painting problems when you're dealing with really old motorcycles and especially old plastic parts. So we will continue the Ducati project and the wheel project. Hopefully we're going to get some good weather very soon. I hope. Anyway, we do try to post up something interesting about motorcycling every day and throw in a few little of our other adventures that happen along the way. And always, of course, hoping that you enjoyed the video, and more than that, that you get some good information from it, some good tips, stuff that'll make your passion for motorcycling more enjoyable. And certainly by sharing the passion of these old motorcycles, and even the new ones, we're sharing something very special, and I hope I'm doing my part along the way. So again, thanks so much for watching.